Welcome to NDTR Spotlight, a show where we highlight former and current NDTRs. And NDTR, if you don't know, stands for Nutritionist Diet Technician Registered. They also go by the credential DTR, which stands for Diet Technician Registered. In order to become an NDTR, you have to graduate from an accredited program, take an exam, and participate in continual education. Welcome to NDTR Spotlight. I'm your host, Marie Lorraine. Today we have a guest who has her own private practice and coaching business as an NDTR. She has an associate's degree in applied science as a dietetic technician. She has credentials as an NDTR and health coach, as well as child nutrition systems. And she feels most confident in wellness, weight loss, and weight management. Her business is Love Nutrition Coaching, and on her page in the About section, it says, I offer full service nutrition coaching to adults, children, and families that want/need to lose weight, want to clean up their eating habits, learn about nutrition, or just want to get healthier. I even offer an exclusive nutritional lifestyle program. And if you go through her page a little bit, you'll see wonderful success stories from her many clients. So this is an interview to watch if you want to do private practice, if you're interested in that and figuring out your niche and all that goes into setting up a business. So let's meet Sonja. Sonja, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited about this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. So what got you interested in the field of dietetics, and how did you find the DTR credential?
It's kind of funny. I actually kind of stumbled upon it. I was not my intention. I actually was going to go to school to be a registered dietitian. I wanted to be sports dietetics. And the school I was applying to, my original GPA from my first stint with school was not high enough. So I actually had to go to a different school to get my GPA up. And the school I picked, which was Tarrant Community College here in Texas, down in Arlington, Texas. They actually had, I just went in, I was going to do my GPA, get my GPA up on basic classes. And they were like, hey, do you know that we have a dietetic technician program? And I'm like, whoa, what's that? I've never heard of it before. I honestly never heard. And so the advisor informed me of what the program was like. And they said, listen, you're going to be here long enough to get your GPA up with your basics. Why don't you just apply for the program and see if you get in? And at least that way, when you finish, you'll have an associate's degree and then you can transfer on to the 4-year. I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. So I kind of started stumbling into it, meaning I took some classes. There were nutrition classes. I figured if I was going to take any classes in the program, I should at least take a couple in the nutrition to see if that was really where I wanted to go, because I was still kind of in the waters about figuring it out. And lo and behold, the first 2 classes, I absolutely fell in love with them. So I committed to the program, and I was going part-time though, because I have a son and my husband travels quite a bit. So this 2-year program really ended up turning into almost a 5-year program for me, just so that I could balance life and my schooling work. And yeah, so I kind of fell upon it and really kind of fell in love with it, honestly, because it was, it allowed me to really kind of expand my knowledge and expand my opportunities.
Wow. So a lot of people do find DTRs when they're trying to become a dietitian, and they find this route. So when you graduated, why did you decide to just stay a DTR and not continue?
And that's a great question. So I'm not your typical age student. So I didn't go back into school until I was almost 42 years old. So when I finished, at that time, once I found out that I was done, my plan was to go on to be a sports dietetics. I was still very much driven towards it, but I had then found out that my classes were not going to transfer on to a 4-year college. So all these classes I had taken, with the exception of one, was going to be the only one to transfer. So I was going to have to do a restart. And at this point in time, I was 48. And I thought, I don't have the time, nor do I have the desire to want to go back to school for 4 more years, possibly 5, depending on what I was going to do for my practicum and things like that. So I just kind of was like, you know what, I think I'm going to take what I have and I'm going to see what I can do with it and go from there. And my husband was very supportive of whatever I wanted to do with it. And when I finished up with school, I kind of went to my professors and I was like, listen, what can I do with this degree? I know what my practicums did for me, but I also knew that because my husband traveled so much, I couldn't really go into the workforce fully committed to it, meaning the 9 to 5, the 8 to 5. I couldn't do 11 to 7 kind of thing because I don't have family where I'm at. So it wasn't going to be an opportunity for me to say, oh, okay, well, I can go work 11 to 7. Oh, by the way, I have a son that I have to get to and from school. So with that, I kind of asked my professor, and she asked me, she goes, what do you enjoy about this? I said, I enjoy helping people understand about nutrition and the wellness side of it and how to approach health in a proactive way. And she goes, well, then why don't you do nutrition coaching? I was like, I didn't know that was an option for us. So I looked more into it and got my degree. I finished my degree and got my certification. And when that happened, I kind of sat down and said, okay, let's figure out how I'm going to open up my own business. And that's what I did.
For one, you look amazing for your age.
Oh, well,
48,
thank you.
I'll just say you're that age. So I want to look like you when I'm 48 or over that.
Thank you.
Um, and so that's really interesting. I love that you went to your professors, people in the field, and like asked for advice. So let's just dive into that. What was that process like? It sounds like you got your coaching certificate, and then what kind of evolved from there?
So once I got my degree and then I got my certification, I literally I utilized my professors a lot to ask them for guidance, to ask them to really help me understand what I could coach to, knowing that with our code of ethics, we only have certain things that we can do. And so they advised me that your M&T is not necessarily going to be where you can go, but you can do wellness, you can do maintenance, you can do child nutrition. And I thought, okay, I can do this. So then what I did was I started researching other registered dietitians that were in the field already with their own private businesses. And I just kind of watched I watched their pages, I read their websites, kind of saw what they were doing, kept in mind what I knew I couldn't do for my own restrictions, and then just kind of started that way. One of the things I did while I was in school, I was very living out loud about my journey. So many people knew I was going back to school. I was going to nutrition. I started a life group with my church, and it was called Faith, Fitness, and Nutrition. And so I really started building my community around me of people knowing what I was doing. So when I finished school, I was very public about it. I posted all my degrees and my certifications. And then when I decided to open up my business, I took some online classes about small business opportunities, how to start a small business, learning how to find out where my niche was going to be. I took I think it was a 4-day weekend course on small business ownership. And that really helped me understand how, if I was going to open my own business, I had to know where my niche was going to be, whether I was going to do it from home, whether I was going to do it from a location, what platforms I was going to use to help market myself. And once I got done with that little 4-day training, that helped me. And then I just kind of started diving into other registered dietitians' online websites and looking to see what they did and how they created their forms, their intake forms, their health assessments. And I just started putting it all together. And I already knew what my business name was going to be. I kind of had decided that a long time ago. And I went and got my LLC and filled out the paperwork. And the next thing you know, I started with a Facebook business page, and that's where I launched it. Went in there, answered all the questions. It's great because Facebook business gives you all these questions to answer. So it kind of helps you prompt yourself. By then I knew what my niche was going to be. And then I just launched it and said, here goes nothing, prayed to God. And he started bringing in the clients slowly but surely. And then I had to go back. Because going through our nutrition degree, you don't get the business education about it, right? Mm-hmm. And that was probably the biggest learning curve I had when I started my own business, was learning how to run a business, not so much how to give nutrition education and all that. I already knew how to do that. I didn't know how to run the business. So then it was taking classes on learning how to do Facebook better, how to use the business side of it, taking seminars and webinars to learn how to start a small business. And then I kind of, in 2018, I said, here goes nothing. And I hung my sign up.
Wow. Okay. So that sounds like a lot of, research on your own, which is really cool that you did that. Looking back, what would you say was the biggest thing you had to learn about small business, or like one thing that really stood out?
Gosh, that's a great question. it would have to be how to reach your market, how to reach your niche, how to relate to them to want to have them come to you, right? I can market myself, but I had to be able to market to my niche, or really I was kind of going to fall into waves of other people doing similar things. I wasn't going to stand out. So I had to really learn how to find my niche, but more importantly, how I was going to market myself to them, how I was going to look relatable, in making them want to inquire in me for my services. So that was probably the biggest curve that I didn't know how to do, was that. And then the other part was finding out how much to charge. So, the registered dietitians, you go out there and you look at their websites, and man, they great fees. And I'm like, what? I'm not worthy of that amount of money. That's a lot of money to ask someone to pay me. Right? I kind of looked at my education and compared it. And so I was like, no. And we do have a lot of great people that have now started their own businesses where they're helping other registered dietitians or people in the health world trying to start a business. So I actually took advantage of a couple opportunities that were given to me and talked like mentors. So, on eatright.org, they have that opportunity where you have a mentorship. Well, I reached out to a mentor on there and asked her, I said, should I charge this? And she was kind enough to ask me some questions and then help me understand that what I was charging was certainly okay, but to also understand that I could charge more if I wanted to, but I needed to know where I fell in that line.
Yeah, I think that's always a difficult thing to be able to tackle the price and knowing your value and knowing that it's flexible, that like you mentioned that you could go higher. And I love that you use that resource on eatright.org. So you've mentioned a couple times your niche and the importance of that. So can you talk to how you on your own journey found your niche and why that is so relevant for a small business?
Oh yeah. So my journey, my wellness journey actually started with me being obese and being out of shape and things like that. And so I kind of fell into the world of triathlon and marathon training just out of the blue. Someone asked me to join. Well, as I was going through that training, one of the things that stuck out to me was that there was a lot of moms trying to do the same thing I was doing, trying to get back into shape, trying to get our bodies back to where we were once before. And as I was going through these training programs, there was really lack of education being shared to us on how we could lose some weight. Also, they were teaching us how to run, but they weren't necessarily helping us with our nutrition side of it. So that kind of stuck out. But what was sticking out to me more was I wasn't the only mom looking to do this transformation to my body. I wasn't this only mom seeking to do better. And so when it came time for this, I was out of school for a while before I went back to school. So I had already started building my my social circle with other moms, because that's kind of what you do once you become a mom. You're like, I got to have a friend that's another mom. I just don't know what I'm doing. And so lo and behold, moms started asking me questions like, hey, what are you doing? What do you do with this? What do you do with that? And so I kind of saw it coming, going, there's a lot of moms out here that are looking, one, either to get back in shape after the kids or continue to stay in shape once they've had the kids, or better yet, how to help feed their own kids healthy meals. And so I really paid attention to that and realized that that was probably going to be my niche, because I also related. I was a mom. For me, I was an older mom, which helped a lot of us older moms too, because we kind of are raised differently than younger moms are nowadays, like on our types of foods. So I was able to have that relatability, and I've kind of just used that. And now I've just kind of spanned out to other moms in general, even regardless of their age group.
So it sounds like you found that niche, like a gap where there's information that needed to be found, and then you but you're not stuck just with that one niche. You're able to go a little bit broader. Is that correct in saying that?
Yeah. Yep. I did at first, I wanted to, but then it just got to a point where people start knowing what you do or knowing what you offer. You soon find out that you don't want to turn them away. And so you got to be flexible, and you decide either, no, I'm staying strictly with this niche, which can be very beneficial, or you're going to open it up. But if you do open that up, it can create some gray area for you, which either means you have to do some more research and diving in education so that you can be knowledgeable in the particular areas, or like I said, you stay within your niche. And I the gap kind of got created on its own. And then I dove into it, and then more people just started asking me what I was doing, and I started sharing, and then it was an easy kind of niche to find.
I like that. I like that. I like that you mentioned if you broaden your niche, you have to make sure you know how to deal with those clients. So, what are your go-to resources for those continual educations for your NDTR credential, or when you're dealing with a patient, you don't know how to approach
So a lot of the websites that, like the anything org or edu, but I go for like the food nutrition magazine that we get as a member. I go for that one for just my CEUs to kind of keep me read a magazine. That's how I love to learn. I do edu I like Harvard Health. I review that a lot. Usually I will get into the internet and I'll search what I'm looking for, a topic of some sort. And then I scroll through and I'm looking for the eatright.org first and foremost, or I'm looking for American Diabetes Association, the EDU. Those are the types of websites that I dive into to really kind of help me keep abreast of helpful knowledge. If it's children, I definitely do eatright.org and go into the children's side of it. I haven't really found a lot of great websites yet for the child nutrition side. Basic books. So like I have a lot of people coming to me asking me about PCOS and a good meal plan, diet plan for PCOS. And that's not my strong suit, but I follow a registered dietitian that's what she does. She wrote a book. She has her own website directly related to that. So I reached out to her one day and I was like, hey, I'm an NDTR. This is what I do. I have a client. What do you advise? She's like, here's my book. Here's my workbook. And so she kind of accidentally turned into a mentor for me so that I was able to advise my client, and it all worked out. So I utilized her resources that she created to help feed someone else. And it was a win-win situation.
That is an amazing story. Being able to reach out to a dietitian and they come alongside you and help you, and you still you keep that client. That's really cool because it's still in your scope of practice.
Yes, and that's what I try, because I know that the code of ethics is very sensitive, so you want to make sure you follow that along. So I try not to go outside of that in any way, shape, or form. But when I was going just through school, one of the things I really picked up on was if you use the resources of our professors, you'll not only learn a lot more, but you'll also be led a lot better, because they're going to help you go where you want to go, where they see your advantage, they see your strong suits, your skill set, they're going to help drive you there. And so when I got done with school, I still kept that same mentality. So when I have questions, if I see a registered dietitian out there that I know specializes in something, I'm not afraid to reach out to her and go, or him, and say, hey, what are your thoughts about this? And most of the time they'll share. And if I feel like it's out of my scope, I'll tell my client, I can't answer this, or I can't help you, but here's someone I would refer you to. And then I refer them on.
That's a really good, what's the word, or algorithm or thought process to, making sure you don't go outside of your scope. So you're also a health coach. How has that additional credential helped you with your business?
It's actually grown my business dramatically. This particular opportunity kind of came after I started my business. When I started my business, people were coming in, trickling slowly but surely. But one of the things I kept seeing with my clients was they didn't, in a life society that we live in right now, everything's busy, busy, busy. Everyone's busy, right? No one has time to do anything. And so when I would sit down and I would do the work with them and I'd do the meal planning and I'd set them all up, they were like, oh, I don't really have time to do all that. I don't have time to do this cooking. I don't have time to do that. Do you have something else? Well, lo and behold, throughout the process, my professor reached out to me and said, hey, this particular organization is looking for health coaches. Would you be interested? You'd be able to work from home, and it's your own business. And I was like, well, let me look into them. So I kind of looked into them, and it turned out to be a blessing for me, because this particular program that certified me as a health coach, it allows me to provide my coaching for free to them, because the company pays me. So I get to give them all the knowledge I've gained through my NDTR degree, but the company provides them with the food for the most part. They're responsible for 1 or 2 or 3 of their meals, depending on how our health assessment comes out. So it's actually been a blessing, because once I was able to give that opportunity to my clients and say, okay, here's my packages that I offer, this, and this, and here's a program I offer. I coach for that as well. They were like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. What's the difference? I said, well, the difference is that you're making your meals with the packages I give you, but with the program, most of the food is provided for you with the exception of 1 or 2 meals, depending on how your health assessment comes out. And so that has been really enticing for people, because they realize, oh, I'm getting the coaching and I'm getting my food and it's only for one price a month. And I'm like, yeah. And so it has been a blessing for me, because it has allowed me not only to grow my business and get paid consistently, because that's the other thing. When you're a business owner, unless you create packages within your business, the income goes like this. But if you create packages and you create programs, then you'll have more residual income. Well, this particular program allows me to have a residual income. So if I'm dipping in my clients on one side of my business, my other side of my business is still growing, because it's a residual.
Mm, yeah, that's a fancy word there, residual.
I know.
Very
I had to
nice.
learn it too.
Yeah, there's lots to learn. So you brought up this conversation of packages and programs. So what is your thought process for designing programs, and how do you do that initial consultant with your clients?
So I have 4 packages or programs that I already designed. I went through other websites of other registered dietitians and kind of looked at what they offered. I first figured out which registered dietitians were along the same lines of what I was going to look to do, which was wellness. So I had to look into there. And then I looked at their packages. I kind of looked at what they were offering, what their packages included. And I started adding and taking and adding and taking to design mine that would fit perfectly for my skill set and what I was looking to help them do. Most of the people come to me, they first and foremost want to lose weight. After losing weight, then they need to understand how that's going to be maintained. So I need to figure out how to do that. And so these packages will offer any from a health assessment, a review of their food diary, as well as a food list. So they tell me what they do like to eat, because there's no point in me creating a meal plan for them when I find out that they don't like squash. And I created a meal plan around squash, right? So they have to fill those out. Then we'll go over and we'll discuss whether or not there's a particular plan or diet that they like to follow. Like, do you want to hit low carb? Do you want to go Mediterranean? Do you want to do DASH? I try to customize to what they're looking for, because as much knowledge as I have, as we have, I can over and date them with too much information. But if they come in and they have an understanding of what they believe they know, then I try to meet them where they're at and say, okay, yes, I can talk about the Mediterranean, or yes, I can talk about low carb, and we can figure out a meal plan to that. They're much more likely to stay committed and to give effort if it's meeting them where they're at versus me saying, this is what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And so that's what my packages, I ask them, what kind of meal plan or diet do you want to follow? You want to do just an American diet? Great, then here you go. We, of course, figure out their calorie intake to maintain, to lose, and then we start talking about the types of foods that they're going to want to incorporate to help them not only make healthy choices, but portion control, maybe some anti-inflammatory types of foods if they've been suffering from swelling and things like that.
Wow. That's refreshing how you just explained that, because diet culture is so big online and on media, and there's this tendency to just have nutrition professionals focus just on one diet, like just vegan, mm-hmm. just vegetarian, and you being able to meet your client and being an expert, if you will, in all these diets and being able to come alongside them and help them reach their goals with whatever they want to eat in a healthy way. I just think that's very admirable and the right way, the right way to handle it. So.
Thank you. It's hard, but I had to learn. Like, I originally was like, originally when I first started, it was always going to be the, what do we call that? The my plate. It was just going to be simply as that. It was always going to be my plate. Well, then as I started bringing clients on, some people are like, well, I hate carbs. I don't want to eat carbs at all. I'm like, okay, what, so that's when I had to be flexible. That's when you have to pivot. Basically, if you really want to, if I want to help my clients, I have to be able to be flexible and pivot when they kind of give me the curveball. Now, will I not ever help them fall in love with carbs? yes, I will, but I'll have to do it at their speed. Because if I try to do it at my speed, they're going to go, it's not for me. I don't want to do it. And then I lose a potential client. Ultimately, my goal is to help them get healthy, but to meet them where they're at in order for them to get healthy, not where I think they should be at, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And mentioning that you had to learn that is just so it's good to be mindful that it's a learning process, nutrition
Mm-hmm.
practice, that you don't just know everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then so one more question specifically about love, love nutrition coaching. You just have the Facebook page. Have you thought of expanding, or is that going, or more so, why just the Facebook page? Do you feel pressure to do multiple social media sites? Because there's a lot of pressure just to put yourself everywhere. So what was your thought and strategy behind just Facebook?
So Facebook originally was just the starting page. That's all that I wanted that to be, was to just kind of get my feet wet and see if maybe I'd start bringing on any clients. Because honestly, I figured, oh, if I do the business page, then I'll have plenty of time to build my website because I'm not really going to have that many clients. Well, that did not happen. So as soon as I did my business page, then I blew up, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So the reason I don't have a website yet is because I simply have not had the time to sit down and design one, nor have I had the time, or made the time, I should say, really, to hire someone. But I'm at that point right now. I was just having this conversation yesterday, because I have grown so much that I actually had to hire a virtual assistant. I just don't have the bandwidth to manage my social media, to manage my client calls and check-ins, to manage my resource, my education as well, and manage a family, and manage my accounting. I don't have the bandwidth. So I had to hire a virtual assistant. And she and I were talking yesterday, and she's like, where are you at with your website? Because I think it's time you grow. I'm like, oh, can I hire someone? She goes, oh, I'm for hire. I'm like, okay, I think I might have to hire you, because I'm at a point now where at least a landing page is going to have a benefit for me, so that people can at least start there. And then, but again, it's a process. It's, if there's people out there that know how to do this and just have it all launch at once, kudos to you, because I'll tell you that I did not figure that out. I tried to do step by step. And with that, 2 years later, almost 3 years, I'm still without a website because I have been so busy with clients, which is a good thing.
Yeah, that's a great reason to not have a not have a
Yeah.
website. And then it makes it exciting because you're slowly, you're growing, and then each year something new is happening, and it's a good time.
Well, and I figure the website is great, but honestly, my niche spends a lot of time on Facebook.
Mhm.
My niche spends a lot of time on Instagram. My niche spends a lot of time on social media, not so much in websites as much as social media. So I really, again, talk about having to learn. I had to figure out in my niche, was my mom's going to really go to a website, or was my mom going to find me on Facebook and be more integrated there? And it has panned out. It has worked for me that I picked the right avenue right out of the gate by staying with the business Facebook page, because that's where my businesses all come through. That and referrals. That's the other piece I was going to share too, is that when you're getting your degree and you're going through school, utilize every resource your teacher gives you. Every opportunity to network is going to be an opportunity for a potential client if you decide to go on your own, or a potential opportunity to open a door for you. And that is what I did. If you weren't my friend by the time I was done school, I made you my friend. And whether you were my teacher or not, because I knew some way, shape, or form I was going to need them. And it panned out that when, like I said, my professor sent me an email about a company looking for health coaches. That's hardly ever, they're so busy after one graduate. The likeliness of them thinking of me, or someone for that matter, is very slim to come by. And my teacher thought of me. When I went to a convention, I went up and introduced myself to a woman whom I knew I had been introduced to 2 years earlier. She remembered who I was. She was like, oh, by the way, I think you need to do something like this. So it was the networking. It's the same thing, living out loud when I was going through school. So when I finished my program and I launched my website or my Facebook page, the people knew what I was doing. So it just started, that business started.
That networking is so important. And for some people though, it can be really challenging putting yourself out there and talking to people. So what is your approach, or what advice would you have to someone who's scared to network but know it's important? How do they approach those conversations?
First of all, kick fear in the face, because that's only going to hold you back. It really is. It's only going to hold you back, and it's going to delay your career choice, or it's going to delay your journey in any way, shape, or form. So just kick it aside. Remember that the people that you're afraid to network with, they were in your shoes once before, so they were afraid too, but that they're where they are because they kicked fear in the face and said, not today, I'm going to do this. Be very alert when and if you are introduced to people in networking. Be intentional with the meetings, talk to the people, eye contact, remember their names, take their contact information, be sociable with them, whether it's, even friending them on Facebook. That's part of what I've done before too, friending them on LinkedIn, things like that. But networking, put yourself, without this COVID thing, it would be a lot easier. But with COVID, it has definitely put a kibosh on some of the networking in-person opportunities. But if there are some, partake in them and socialize. Like there's a table of people you don't know, and you're there and you're with a group of people you do know, but you know that there's a table you don't know, go sit with them and introduce yourself. Because they were there too once before. So I'll go, a lot of our events, I'd go with school or I'd go on my meetings. And I just went to one this past December up in Dallas. I didn't know a soul in there. And I walked right up to a table and I was like, ladies, can I sit with you? And they're like, sure, have a seat. Who are you? What's your name? Blah, 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 blah. Business cards went around. It was registered dietitians, and here I am, this NDTR. And but it all worked out. It was one of those things where if I needed help now in a particular field or a particular niche, I now have this woman's business card.
I love that. And that approach to be able to approach dietitians. A lot of times people feel like a DTR is less than, and you're just networking and working with them.
I totally get that. And I honestly struggled with that too. I struggled with that more in my practicums because I felt like I was the low man on the totem pole. And the more I really kind of stepped back and looked at what we go through for schooling, it's not the case. We're not the low man on the totem pole, because the registered dietitians really utilize us, to the best that they can. I also realized that if I educated the registered dietitian on what I could do, then I got utilized more. Unfortunately, some registered dietitians don't even know the capacity, what an NDTR can do and what we've been trained to do. So sharing with them, they're like, oh, wow. And then being open with registered dietitians, for that matter, I found that the more I was open with them, the more they were open with me. So then that kind of put down that wall of, oh, I'm this just NDTR and they're the registered dietitian. I definitely have respect for all RDs, but I also have respect for us NDTRs and what we went through and what our schooling was and our hours were and what we're capable of. Just because we have an NDTR does not mean that we're not capable of having the same knowledge as an RD. It's the same thing that when you get out into the real world, you will meet people that don't have a credential to save their name, but they have almost more knowledge than you do ever. And just because they have a credential does not mean they're smarter, that they're better, that I can't do what they do. It just means they have a credential and they put some more hours in.
Yeah, that humble approach I think is so important. It's very easy to get wrapped up in your credential and not realize like you have this, you continually learning forever. And yes. So very well said. So I have one more question for you before we close out this interview. And I like to ask all the guests, what are your thoughts on in regards to diversity in the workforce or in your clients, or any way you want to interpret that?
I think diversity is essential. I think it's amazing. It's definitely, and you can talk about different races, different body types, different sexes. It's what makes the world go round. And I would love to see more diverse. I would love to see more guys in the world of the NDTR. I think that they will bring, because after being out in the real world for so long, you see a lot of men that are overweight or could really stand to use some knowledge or coaching. And I have noticed that the men are a little more, not resistant, but they're not as open to having a woman tell them, one more woman in their life to tell them what they need to do, right? And they're like, if I have one more woman, tell me what I got to do, and I can't eat that French fry, I'm out, right? So I think men would be, more men would be definitely a great addition. I would love to see more different races, because honestly, I know from what I've experienced now that of different races, their bodies are different. the way, they have certain exposures to different disease states and all that fun stuff. So I believe that the more diversity is only going to strengthen all of us. I would, if I know I can't help someone that has a different background than I, different culture, different race, then I want to know that I have someone I can go to. And I haven't met a lot, but those that I am meeting, I'm like, yay, the better. It's really kind of what the foundation of this world is diversity.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. The men, there's very few men in this field, and you're so right. Having a man talk to a man about nutrition is different than a man and a woman talking about it.
Yeah.
So
There's a different thing. It's what I was listening to something the other day, and they said, I'm sorry, women, but you just don't know what it's like to be a man. And I was like, you're right, 100% right. I can pretend all day long. No, I can't. But if I had a male, like my husband, I got lucky that I was able to help him lose his weight and get healthy. But that was a trust factor he had in with me too, where I think men, it's a different connection.
mm-hmm.
Just a different connection. And I think they'd be open to it. However, I think there's also that card that men needing help like this without being told by a doctor that you have to go get nutritional help. That's also their man card being taken. So they have to be open to saying, yeah, I'm going to go seek someone to help me. And it doesn't cost them their man card. If anything, it gives them a bigger one simply because they're taking care of themselves. They're investing in themselves so that they can help, they continue to be that man in their life, in that life or that family of theirs. Right.
Yeah. So well said. So well said. Well, how do people reach you or find you online?
Oh, well, they can reach me at Love Nutrition Coaching Facebook page, business Facebook page. They can reach out to me on my personal Facebook page, Sonja Love, or they can reach me at slove@lovenutritioncoaching.com. That's my email address. Those are my three main ways of connecting. I'm always on social media, some way, shape, or form. So the response time is very quick. It's on my phone, it's on my computer, it's on my husband's phone. So if someone reaches out to me, I'm usually in contact with them within 24 hours.
Perfect. And is there anything you want to leave for the NDTR audience? Anything of encouragement or words of advice?
I would just say, ask questions. If you're not sure, if you think ask questions just the same. Pay attention to when you're in your degree, what you're really finding your passion in, but ask questions too about what other possibilities there are out there. That was the one thing I didn't know, that nutrition coaching was an option for me until the very end. And had I known sooner that it was an option, I would have done my portfolio would have been a little different. I probably would have invested in some more business classes at school versus just nutrition, just to help me have better abilities when I get out, more skill set, better skill set. So ask questions, don't, be open when you see other NDTRs doing something that you're like, oh, I didn't know we could do that. Ask them about it, talk to them about it, especially if you're inquisitive enough about it and you want to know more about it. And then don't pigeonhole yourself to just the three topics that we get taught on. We do clinical, we do community, and then we do long-term live. Don't pigeonhole yourself to that, because just as the registered dietitians have a vast area, so don't we. We just have to know that we have to ask about it, because we are pigeonholed in many cases. And then you get stuck going, well, I can only do long-term care. I'm like, no, you can't. You have a lot more to go for. You just have to ask the right questions and the right people.
This is a great interview. So much awesome advice. Well, thank you, Sonja, for your time, and thank you everyone for watching this interview. Comment down below one thing that you took away from this interview. We would love to hear from you, and let us know what niche you're thinking about entering into the field if you're doing a private practice as an NDTR. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, sign up for emails so you know when these interviews are released. They're released typically every Thursday, and we will see you in our next one. Thanks so much for watching.